finally had 10 weapons that I could rank up for Warzone 3, whatever we're calling Warzone now with the upcoming Season 1 integration with Modern Warfare 3. But if I only had 10 weapons that I could rank up, what would I make sure that I rank up so that I'm good to go for my time in Urzikstan? Today we're running down what I would recommend for weaponry that you should be making sure is maxed out with all available attachments and everything at your disposal to dominate on day one. As we go along, drop your thoughts down below. What are you thinking about Warzone Season 1 with Modern Warfare 3? You looking forward to it? Looking forward to trying out Urzikstan? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare 3 Season 1, the Warzone integration, and all. With just over 60% of viewers not subscribed, I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, check out my friends over at Gamer Advantage and follow over on Twitch for where we'll be live in the future, chatting all things gaming, life, whatever the case. Love to see you out there and chat with you. But for now, let's jump into the weapons that I think you should be ranking up for Warzone's upcoming integration. Firstly, as a sort of like layout of how this is going to go, not everything's going to be in a 1 to 10 fashion, a sort of linear ranking style. Instead, I want to go category by category for the weapons that I think are worth ranking up. And that starts with the battle rifles. The way the meta has gone this last year for Modern Warfare 2's iteration of Warzone on Al Mazrah, I'd say the battle rifles are an area of focus you'll want to mainly focus with, along with the LMGs, as we'll mention next, because we saw plenty of it over the last year. For the battle rifles, we saw the Cronin Squall, the TAC-V, and others, but battle rifles, I think, will be another big contender this time around in Warzone 3, or again, whatever we're calling it. Firstly, let's start with the BAS-B. This one, while I'm not expecting it to be exactly the same as the last time I used it, I can say with confidence that I'd rank this one up. At COD Next, I messed around with this one a bit, and let me tell you, this thing is a beast. One of the things to keep in mind with the weapon air quote metas per se is the damage per round or theoretical damage per mag. When you're doing so, you have to recognize that weapons are balanced with very abrupt trade-offs. Usually, a high damage weapon will have a trade-off in the realm of high recoil, a slower rate of fire, lower mobility or ADS, a lesser mag capacity, sometimes some of, if not all of the above. But the BAS-B, yeah, it's a powerhouse without many of those trade-offs. When it's kitted, you'll be able to secure kills in the 800 millisecond TTK range, outwards of 50 meters. You'll have all the mobility of a rifle, or close to it, all the control of a rifle, but the damage of a 277 round. At my outing at COD Next, where I was able to use this, I have to say, I found this to be one of my favorite weapons to use, and it packed a punch. I wish that I would have used it sooner in our play session and gotten more footage of it, but it was a blast to use, man. Again, I'm not expecting this to be the exact same damage values or same properties as we had at COD Next, because it was head and shoulders an incredibly dominant weapon during that. But if it's anything like it, which I still think it will be pretty close, I'd definitely recommend ranking this one up. Now, the next battle rifle I'd keep an eye on is the MTZ-762. This is a weapon that I think has potential to be up there, but we'll touch on in a second. It has a couple of major crutches. Statistically speaking, it outclasses the BAS-B in damage and has relatively comparative mobility attributes. Tied across the board with the BAS-B in mobility and slightly outclassing in ADS move speed and having a bit better sprint to fire speed and reload quickness, plus having a better headshot damage and better base damage profiles, why wouldn't you want to use this? Well, the big fault point of this weapon will be the ammo, which is why if I'm ranking these like 1 to 10, it's probably in the bottom half for me, maybe like in the 7 to 10 range. But in the sense of the weapon category, I'd wager that you'd want to rank this up alongside that BAS-B if you're looking for an alternative. It's just the max of a 30 round mag isn't going to do you a whole lot of good, especially in like trios and quads, and especially if you start taking gunfights at a distance. You're just going to run out of ammo too quickly. It might be viable and do pretty well in solos or duos, but for the most like larger scale games, it's not going to be the best because of how limited you are in ammo. Another major fault, its max damage effective range is only 21.2 meters when kitted for said range compared to, say, the BAS-B's max of 42.7 meters. Literally half of that, which in Warzone as well, that's a big difference. So in terms of ranged gunplay, I could maybe see this being like a sniper support weapon, as strange as that sounds, being that we have limited ammo. Packing a punch with that mobility that it has mixed with the aspect of the shortened range, use that to decimate in close, but not rely on it at range. That's the way that I see it, at least. Again, a potential contender here, but one that I would still rank up if I'm ranking up battle rifles. The LMGs is the next thing I want to talk about, where the Pulemyot 762, honestly, I'm just going to call it the PKM for my sake. This was another one that I used at COD Next, and while I'm not expecting it to be the same again, I'd still wager that it's pretty dang good come launch of Warzone 3 or Urzikstan, Modern Warfare 3 Season 1, whatever. In terms of sheer damage, this is the weapon that wins in the head-to-head department for LMGs against any of the LMGs in the Modern Warfare 3 department. A headshot damage of 54, upper torso of 49, and lower torso of 45 means that it comes with a 700-ish TTK until around 30 meters if you're landing every single shot. But that doesn't give it the fastest TTK among LMGs. We'll come back to that in a second. However, the PKM does offer power and control, which helps to manage this beast at a distance. With the introduction of the conversion kits here, I would be curious to see how much of a fight the Jack Annihilator puts up on the base build of the weapon. I mean, it drastically undercuts your range, sure, but also it grants a healthy boost to the rate of fire and mobility. So TTK will see a jump there, absolutely, but just not as far in range. But mix that in with the increase to the movement speed, ADS speed, sprint to fire speed, and accuracy, it might be worth noting, but we'll have to see how that all breaks down on the 6th. Now, the next LMG that I'd rank up is the Bruin. And this is one that I'm very interested in because, as we mentioned, LMGs and battle rifles have been the meta for a bit because of their damage, their TTK properties. So if you can make them mobile at all or carry a weapon that can be mobile, you're just a roaming tank at that point, right? Well, I'm wondering, now that the Bruin is back, I'm wondering if we see that Bruin meta V2 from what we had in Warzone 1, back in the days of like Verdansk. Because statistically speaking, it is the second from the worst LMG in regards to damage per shot, but that, as you probably know, is hardly the whole picture when it comes to TTK and viable weapon use. With a best-in-class fire rate of 759.1 RPM, that's where you'll see this weapon make up any lost ground comparatively, and why I think it'll have that chance to be a powerhouse, bringing it to be the consistent best TTK across the LMG board, still not even being an 800 millisecond TTK, outwards of 60 meters. But for those longtime Warzone players that can stretch their memories back a few years, here's what happens if you equip a 60 round mag rather than the base 100 round or the 200 round belt mag. You get an increase in the movement speed, sprint speed, tac sprint speeds, ADS movement speeds, ADS speed, reload quickness, cutting that in literally half, by the way, sprint to fire speeds, and weapon swap speeds. So yeah, 100 rounds is nice to have, but it's absolutely overkill. 60, as I've said many times since Warzone began, is what I think is perfect for most engagements. So when you can pack the TTK in like that and have the damage of an LMG, plus the mobility that that 60 round affords you, well, this one might just be a contender. Now, before we move on into what is next here for the remaining weapons that I would rank up, a quick reminder, check out my friends over at Gamer Advantage. While the holiday sales have concluded here at the moment, they're still the most lightweight, comfortable, and durable frames on the market that I would absolutely recommend for any improvement to my daily productivity. They've helped me out for sure. And if you guys want to invest in your vision health, cannot recommend them enough. Full transparency, it is a bit of an investment, but again, I think your vision is absolutely something worth investing into. So if you're like me, looking at a monitor, your phone, or gaming for a good chunk of the day, at least check out what they have on offer, what they can do for you. Link in the description below, and if you guys want to pick something up for yourself, use code ESPRESSO to get 10% off your entire order. That said, let's get back into it. Let's talk a little bit about rifles. First on deck, the Holger 5.56. Best in class damage among auto rifles, worst in class fire rate, I'll give you that, but has the best effective damage range as well, outwards of 36.8 meters. So combine all that together and you have the lowest potential TTK at range among rifles, sitting at the low 700 millisecond range, which is stupidly good for a weapon here at this. It's incredibly easy to control, has high mobility, and of course, that time to kill and that damage potential, that's huge for Warzone whenever you're trying to take things for a medium to longer range gunfight. Statistically speaking, this is what I'd take in most rifle head-to-heads, save for like one exception, which we'll touch on in a second. The only real downside though that I see the Holger having is the ammo capacity. With 40 rounds max, it does make it a bit tougher to challenge those longer distance gunfights or take on multiple enemies all at one time, but it certainly still is possible, and because of that, I do like the Holger 5.56. I just like that mobility, that handling that it affords. It's almost as easy to use as the MCW, but much higher potential to secure a kill with any build you end up putting on it. So definitely say rank up the Holger 5.56. Next, the DG58. I think the DG58 has the potential to be a wild card, and one of the biggest flaws that it has is that damage range, only effective outwards of 35.6 meters. But if you kit this out, you can give it an opportunity for success where the range is outwards of 50 meters, making it a very solid and strong candidate for a weapon at range. But I think that's where some of the danger in the build lies. You extend the range to be relatively on par with battle rifles and LMGs, but you also sacrifice mobility, sprint to fire, ADS, and reload speeds in the process. However, in that effective damage range, it is the third fastest TTK that you have on offer amongst the rifles. So it is something that does potentially give way to the burst meta here at this. We haven't quite seen the burst meta since Cold War, and even those of the AUG and M16, they're tactical rifles, not assault rifles. So I'd be curious to see, in terms of that damage discrepancy between just categorical weapons like that, I'd be curious to see if we can see a standard rifle stack up compared to other heavy hitters in the weaponry department. So while it may not make it into the loadout list come day one after a bit of playtime, I'd still recommend ranking it up just in case, and at the very least, I mean, it's still a powerhouse in multiplayer for Modern Warfare 3, so you can't go wrong ranking it up no matter what. Good time in Modern Warfare 3's multiplayer, and maybe that dark horse wild card here within Warzone. But finally, the last rifle that I want to talk about here is the MTZ-556, rounding out that rifle category. But Espresso, that's the weakest AR in the bunch. Why would you pick a pea shooter over the MCW or the SVA or the FR556? All good and valid questions, but thankfully, for a product of TTK, damage is hardly the only thing in that equation and whole picture. The MTZ has, most importantly, the fastest rifle TTK of all weapons outwards of 35 meters, to where then it's only slightly edged by the Holger 556 and the FR556, but at that point, I'd take the Holger. But for 35 meters and under, it has the fastest potential TTK of all rifles, which is huge, and you factor in that ease to use, the best-in-class rate of fire, and high enough magazine capacity that you can take on more than one enemy at a time. Along with the fact that it has good rifle mobility, you've got yourself a solid choice for not only just a ranged weapon to that medium range category, but I mean, even if you want to use it as a sniper support weapon, this would be a great choice, I think, because up close and personal, you're going to be able to shred through enemies, but even keep your own at a distance somewhat. And then of course, for those longer ranges, you could take a sniper rifle of some kind. So absolutely, I'd recommend the MTZ-556, and ranking that up come for Warzone day one. Now moving over into the final primary categories of like weapons that I actually want to talk about, we're going to throw a sniper in just for the sake of snipers, not really counting for or against the total here, but the SMGs. Firstly, let's talk about the Striker. I think you should rank up the Striker not only just because it's great in Modern Warfare 3, but especially after the recent buff with Modern Warfare 3's weaponry. I'm really curious to see if this will transfer one-to-one to Warzone, again, pending no further weapon tuning. The Striker's kind of been all-reliable for the SMG category since the beta. I've seen it, you've seen it, you've probably done very well with it, and while it doesn't boast the best rate of fire, the control, mobility, and damage output are all stellar and help contribute to this being one of the most consistent SMGs with TTKs outwards to that of the 20-meter range, which to me, outwards of 20 meters is my personal target with SMGs. Anything longer and it's kind of getting into rifle territory or like primary range, I usually overkill SMGs, so I don't take them normally as my air quote primary, but outwards of just about 20 meters, you have a TTK that's sub 700 milliseconds, which is a great benefit. Plus, we've seen that you can kit the Striker out for a host of different playstyles. You want more range? You got it. You want better mobility? You got it. You want more ammo capacity? You got it. So the Striker, absolutely recommend ranking that up for Warzone day one. Next, the Rival 9 is one that I feel like is going to be very comparable to a prior MP5 meta. Not the MW19 Verdansk Warzone first year meta, but instead the Cold War MP5 meta. For those that remember that one, if it acts similarly, it'll be an absolute beast of a weapon, but only in real close quarters. Past 5 meters and up to 10 meters, it's the best TTK in the SMG category. And I'll have to double check, but it's quite possible the best TTK in the whole game in those 5-meter span. But after that, that's about the extent of it. Unlike a weapon we'll touch on in a second, it doesn't drop off as hard, but still drops off drastically, that it goes from at the 10-meter mark being number 1 in the TTK department for SMGs to 5th at 11 meters. So to me, it's first comparable, I think, to the Cold War MP5. Absolute shredder up close, but drops near off a cliff outside of that. With a controllable rate of fire, solid mobility, and ammo to wipe out a whole squad, I'm going to be playing around with this one for sure come day one, so I'd recommend that absolutely. Next, the WSP-9. Now, this is another one that's pretty dang reliable and follows up that Rival 9 in a lot of areas. The not-so-fast firing counterpart to the other WSP weapons, this affords a bit more control and pacing in gunfights, which proves to be helpful as it does have a trade-off then as a higher damage, the highest potential damage per round of the SMG category by a long shot. The weapon itself reminds me of, not only in feel, but also statistically, like the Milano from Cold War and Warzone, but not quite as good for those long-range engagements. Still, again, outwards to that about 20-meter range, my personal air quote long range for SMGs. It does quite well there, but I think this, if you use it for mid-range, you'll be good. It's a solid middle ground TTK up close, but it holds steady across the board or even to further ranges. So you can't really go wrong with that one to rank it up as a sort of backup to the other two. But the final one that I want to touch on is kind of asterisk. It's a footnote, don't really count this for or against, but the WSP Swarm is a very surprising one that I, again, think this could be a wild card weapon for sure. This will absolutely dominate in the sub 500 millisecond potential TTK, but that's only outwards of 5 meters, so point blank essentially. So it then drops off to 600-ish millisecond TTKs to the 20-meter mark. At that point, it's beaten by a handful of weapons, but again, it is something that in close you can absolutely shred. Now, you can throw on the 100-round drum mag if you want, and surprisingly, it doesn't take away from too much of that mobility or anything in terms of sprint to fire, ADS speed, which is kind of surprising to me. Gaining that much ammunition and that large a mag by comparison, that usually you'd see that trade-off be something that's insane, but it's not too bad. So rank that up just in case, because it does have really fast TTKs for even long range by comparison to other SMGs, but it is insane in that close quarter situation. The final weapon we'll talk about is the Cat AMR. Now, the Cat is, seeing it firsthand, the one that will one-shot, one-kill in Warzone here in the terms of the sniper category out of the Modern Warfare 3 weapons. I think you're going to want to run this if you are a sniper within Warzone, and sure, statistically speaking, the longbow should keep up when you consider headshot damage values, but only in Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer or on enemies that aren't entirely kitted out in terms of armor. If you don't have full 300 HP, you're not going to get the job done. So the Cat is the only weapon you'll be able to one-shot, headshot someone and down them, unless you're, again, taking a sniper off Modern Warfare 2. So the Imperium, Victus, MCPR, they're all solid choices as well. Signal 50 for spam if you want to do that. But in terms of the one-shot headshot department for Modern Warfare 3 weapons, the Cat AMR is one that I would recommend. There's not nearly as much open space as Al Mazrah in Urzikstan, so it is possible we don't see the overuse of the sniper meta initially, but who knows? I'd absolutely say to rank it up and to get it ready for Warzone, just in case you want to use, again, a new sniper and you find the situation does come into question. But that said, that is the weapons that I would rank up here for Warzone Day 1. We got about a week's time now before the update in Season 1 does go out, so make sure you're taking some time and ranking these up. Again, if you have anything you'd like to throw into the list that you think absolutely could be beneficial, feel free to let me know down in the comments. But that is where we're going to wrap it up. Again, make sure to check out my friends over at Gamer Advantage, but for now, that's what we're going to call it. So let me know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so it's a single thing running all things Modern Warfare 3, Warzone, and Urzikstan. A ton of coverage here with that coming up here in the next week or so and beyond. So I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.